I'm Glenn McGuinness, and this is Outburst. On the program, do you think the Liberal NDP deal has been good for Canadians?
It's been a functioning minority government in my view.
Too much spending money that we don't really have.
I think the NDP and Liberals share a lot of common values.
They formed this far-left coalition.
But first, the safety of our elected officials is, of course, important, and death threats towards our Prime Minister and Cabinet Ministers has been on the rise in recent years, according to reports. But it doesn't stop there. Members of Parliament who don't hold these high-profile ministerial portfolios have also been on the receiving end of these threats. Protection for lower-profile MPs can be provided on a case-by-case basis, but if this potential occupational hazard gets worse, should we beef up security? Our question.
Should members of Parliament be provided with personal protection similar to senators or cabinet ministers?
Well, I definitely think that they deserve protection, and rightfully so, because after all, they are the voice of the people, and they're oftentimes saying things that people don't like to hear. And that being the case, there are people that react badly to comments they don't like and do bad things. And so I think that of all the people, they probably deserve protection more than most.
Well, if you're talking all members of Parliament, I wonder if it's financially feasible. That would be an awfully big bill for security, maybe for certain high-profile positions, if somebody was genuinely at risk, but I don't think you could justify providing protection for all members of Parliament.
We want people to feel safe. We want people to feel that they can participate in our government without feeling at risk or threatened, their lives are threatened or their families are threatened. So I would do it on a case-by-case basis.
There will be many instances where, public officials have been attacked, and like any acts of violence should be condoned. And if there's instances where the public officials are being more violently targeted, I think it's fine for them to continue having these special protections.
No, I think I don't think they need to have that level of security. I think that's a waste of money.
I think that anybody that's in public service is subject to some kind of attack from the public, whether it's vocal, which it usually is, but also physical. And so, yes, they should have protection.
There's a lot more friction, there's a lot more tension, and I think as we as a society have become more divided, I think people's opinions have become more extreme, and I think all members of Parliament and people in the government do need more protection.
I don't think so. I don't believe there's a great deal of danger for the most part. It's just part of the job, I think.
I completely agree with the leader of the country having that security detail. But I have some reservations just going down the path that the U.S. seems to go down in terms of providing that to members of Parliament. There's just something, it's hard to describe, but there's something just kind of un-Canadian about it.
Interesting. We live in a world since 9/11. Before 9/11, the Prime Minister and Cabinet had very little protection, and then life changes. Should every member of Parliament, eventually they're going to have to. I'm sure at some point life goes on, things happen. Changes in security usually happen with airplane crashes because something went wrong. Security has been bolstered on Parliament Hill after bad things happened. Unfortunately, it's the way the world goes. We're probably at some point going to have protection for every member of Parliament, probably. If it's reasonable, feasible right now, who knows? That's not up to me to say, but if it happened in the future, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yep, I think so, because the world is changing globally, and they're elected officials trying to make the world a better place, so I'm all for it. Yeah, no, I think it's unfortunate, and it's Ottawa, but it's, I think, I would support it.
I guess in Canada, historically, we haven't, and I would hope in our society we haven't gotten to that point yet where we need to have every MP to have personal protection. I'd like to think we're still quite a civil society and we don't need to have individual protection for each member of Parliament.
Yes, absolutely, depending on the circumstances, in the I think they should deserve it.
I think in some situations, yes. I think if they ask for it, then they should be eligible to receive it. Based on some of the interactions our politicians have had with the public, I think it's warranted, unfortunately.
Yes, I think so. Well, they're in the public eye. They're visible. I mean, it's Canada. It's not the U.S., so I don't think we have as much to fear here. But insofar as anyone's getting protection, yeah, members of Parliament should. I think so.
I do believe so. Yes. Yes, I just believe that in today's society we don't know what's going to happen, or, just to be the better protected, the better, I feel, for all of our people in Parliament.
Data released by Stats Canada at the end of 2023 indicates violent crime and homicides are on the rise in this country, up almost 8%, which are the highest numbers we've seen since 1992. But even though those numbers are rising, authorities are quick to remind us that homicides are still a rare occurrence in this country. We sent our cameras out to ask people what could be done to further protect Canadians. Our question.
According to Statistics Canada, there is a rise in violent crime in this country. What should the federal government do about it?
In terms of the rise in violent crime in the country, I think it's a byproduct just in terms of, there's a number of factors that go into it, but I think one of the key ones is just people not having the resources they need to live a productive life, from housing to just food insecurity to a whole pile of issues, I think, that lead to that, eventually can lead to violence, and untreated mental health issues as well. Like, I think it's not one simple answer.
I'm not sure that the federal government can really do much about the rise in crime. It's going to have to be more at a local level, municipal, provincial level. The feds don't understand what's happening on the ground in Halifax every day, the gun violence we have downtown, the problem with crime on the streets. Homelessness is a huge part of crime. We can't seem to even start to attack that. It's atrocious right now. So there's a lot of factors that impact the crime rate, and I don't believe at a federal level they understand what we need.
I think making sure that people are well taken care of, providing access to food, shelter, affordable housing, making sure that people's base needs are met so that they're comfortable and hopefully have enough comforts to make life easy enough.
You never see a policeman on the street anymore. When I was young, there were police everywhere. I mean, they weren't bothering anybody, they were just there. And they were a presence, and it discouraged a lot of stupid crimes. And if they can't do that, then they have to make the punishment more severe.
I think a lot of crime, at least from what I've seen and experienced around my area, a lot of it is monetary. I think the economic situation here in Nova Scotia is, it's really bad. I think there are a lot of people who struggle, and that's why crime has picked up in that way.
I think stiffer penalties, longer sentences, that sort of thing. That's really what you got to discourage them somehow.
I guess need to look at which levels of government are responsible for various parts of crime. I don't think you can park it at any one level of government. I think for the most part it's provincial and municipal that need to look at how they're policing, how they're policing, what information they're using to help prevent violent crimes.
I think we should seek and find out why. Right, let's find out why, and then hopefully we'll react in the right way accordingly. I think if people are looking for one button to press to say this is what's going to fix it, we're not going to be able to find it. It's got to be a multitude of things that we have to address.
Okay. I agree. I also agree with looking into more mental health programs.
Definitely.
And ensuring that people are getting the help that they need so that we're not seeing such an increase in violence.
I mean, I could say more police, I could say more funding for security, and that's where I think we need to go. I think it's also citizens being mindful that we need to look after one another, in my mind, because we've lost our givingness or our compassion for humankind. I feel a lot of people. So I think we all need to do our part.
Oh, that's too general. I think you have to look at it region by region. What's the cause of the rise? And the rise is a symptom of deeper issues, and the deeper issues need to be addressed. So so studies done as to why there's a rise. That's the first step, and you work from information, not just from there's a rise, react to that.
I think security and policing is community-based when it can be, and perhaps injections need to be made at different places.
I'd want to know how those statistics were gathered. Generally, I tend to be a bit skeptical about statistics that are telling us that society is constantly becoming more dangerous, because I've read other stuff that indicates the opposite. So I would avoid any extreme measures. Maybe not to sound paranoid, but it might be more of a manufactured crisis than a real crisis.
I think it'd be good to just support like a law enforcement a little bit more funding for the law enforcement, and perhaps even some stricter punishments with people who sort of go into our jailing system, and stricter times for them, perhaps to like a little bit harder for them to kind of get parole and come back, particularly if they're like repeat offenders.
And I really don't believe that crime is any different today than it was years ago, other than the fact that because of the media and social networking, that we're hearing about things that have existed for a long time. And I think it's something that we don't condone, obviously, but it's something that we shouldn't be blowing out of proportion just to make the news and make frightening comments.
A person running in an election but not associated with a political party is known as what? Backbencher? Incumbent? Or independent?
Independent.
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 Independent?
Independent.
No, backbencher.
Independent.
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 Same. Independent.
Independent.
Backbencher.
Incumbent.
Independent.
Correct. You're so smart.
An independent politician is not recognized as having official party affiliation. During an election, they may have run under the independent category, defected from a recognized party during the life of a parliament, or belong to a party that does not have at least 4 elected members. As well, independent members do not necessarily receive priority recognition during question period, funding for research support, or the right to reply to ministerial statements. Members of both the House of Commons and the Senate are permitted to hold office without being members of a political party.
It's been 2 years now since the federal Liberals and NDP signed on to that supply and confidence agreement. This agreement guarantees NDP support for the minority Liberal government in the House of Commons until about 2025, in exchange for a commitment to act on NDP priorities, which would include affordable housing, dental care, and a national pharmacare plan. But opponents of the agreement have categorized it as a Liberal NDP coalition, which they say is not what Canadians wanted in the first place. So we took to the streets to see what you think about this. Our question:
Do you think the Liberal NDP deal has been good for Canadians?
I don't think so. I don't think so. It was too much polarization on both sides of the political spectrum, which is a result of this. So too much compromises. So I think it would be better if there is a much more clarity in terms of where every party stands. So that's what I think.
I think anytime you have a minority government where coalitions have to form for the benefit of the people, then that's a good thing. So in this particular case, yes, I think the Liberal NDP coalition has been a good thing for Canadians.
I think it's good that the NDP is informing the Liberal of the more progressive view. I would prefer for the NDP to form the government, but this is second best, so.
I do believe that the Liberal NDP deal has been good. I think it's they're collaborating together. They both have good and not so good agendas, I feel, or not maybe not agendas, but ideas. And so if we can combine them, put them together, then I think that's only going to be a better Canada.
I think the NDP and Liberals share a lot of common values. So, a deal, as long as there's no major money bill coming down the lane, I don't think this government has any chance of falling anytime soon. I think Mr. Trudeau will decide when is the right time to go to the polls and ask the Canadian people for a vote. I think the deal, or the understanding, the commonality that the Liberals and the NDP have, is setting the country in the way that most Canadians want it to go.
I think in general it has been good for Canadians. I would think for people who are in middle and lower income bracket particularly, it's been good for those Canadians, as well as for families who are looking to have affordable childcare. I think there's been a number of initiatives to help, and then really a broad spectrum of Canadians. I think they've done an okay job.
Yeah, I think that's all right to do. I guess I could see the argument for why people wouldn't like that, just because, if you're voting for a particular party and they win, majority, then, you want them to have the ability to make decisions a little bit faster. But, in my opinion, I think the more perspectives are better. Mind you, things will probably happen pretty slow because of that, but honestly, it seems like everything happens pretty slow anyway, so I think I'd rather get multiple perspectives from different parties contributing to ideas than, one that's just more popular at that time.
No, I don't agree with any deals when two opposing political parties join up to bully a third party. It's like children in the sandbox.
Partnering up like that could actually be a benefit to the Canadians. Teamwork, but if it goes in the right direction, is an excellent idea. All three of them should work together.
I think it was the right result. None of them did well enough to deserve to win an outright majority, but I'm happy with the pharmacare, so I'm happy that came out of the deal.
I do. I really believe that if a minority government can get together with the NDP and the Liberals to bring something good to to people, I'm totally for that. Like the national health care plan. If the NDP wants to push it, and the Liberals can help. For people like us who don't get a company benefit, I think it makes sense. I think if you're really, if you're a hardliner on one end or the other, you might say no. But for me, I think it makes, total sense.
Absolutely, it's been a good deal because between the two of them, they've come up with some good ideas and they've put a tether on the bad ideas that each of them have.
They formed this far left coalition, and they're just basically, we don't have a middle of the road anymore. It seems to be like it's extreme right, or it's this big, everything is left, and it's like everything is okay, and I don't agree with a lot of their policies. No, absolutely not.
No, I don't think it's been good. Too much spending money that we don't really have. That's about it. I just don't like the sort of no end to what they can spend money on.
I am a fan of that deal. I was discussing the Liberal NDP deal the other day with someone. I think it got stuff done. I think it forced the Liberals to do things they hadn't planned on doing.
I think it has been good. It's been a functioning minority government in my view. There's been some fairly major accomplishments. This dental plan sounds like it has a lot of potential in terms of, again, making life more affordable for Canadians. So I think it's been a very positive thing overall.
On April 16th, Deputy Prime Minister and Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland will stand up in the House of Commons to deliver her government's federal budget. This budget comes at a time where a higher cost of living and affordable housing is at the forefront of what is on the minds of Canadians with seemingly no long-term fix in the foreseeable future. Other items that might be included would be infrastructure spending for municipalities and pharmacare. So we took to the streets to ask Canadians what they feel should be on the to-do list for Budget Day. Our question:
What would you like to see included in the federal budget?
Included in the federal budget, again, I'd like to see more money go towards the military, but directed at increasing the soldiers, the amount of soldiers we have, and also the amount of equipment we have, especially with helicopters and fighter jets.
I'm actually pretty happy with what they're doing with the federal budget. If they're going to make any changes, and I'd say small changes, more on the pollution front or the smog abatement front, would be my main concern. Otherwise, I think they're doing pretty good.
It would just be great if we could see a bit more support for small businesses that are still trying to recover since COVID. I know a lot of us got a lot of support during that really difficult time, which we're all super grateful for, but I know for myself personally, I know a lot of small businesses here in Winnipeg at least have had to shut down. So it just it's a bit of a hard time right now when we're in this recession. We all still haven't recovered from COVID. So if there was some sort of help that could be added to that budget, I know it would really benefit a lot of us small businesses, myself included.
A lot of people want to get housing, and the rates at which the interest rate is just alarming, and which is affecting a lot of Canadians to move forward to get homes. So I think in that section, the government should be considerate.
Well, healthcare is a priority. Daycare assistance is a priority. Okay, now I'm thinking about it. Yeah, pharmacare support towards a more fuller, comprehensive pharmacare. And I like the dental care program, especially now that I'm retired and I don't have insurance.
Probably some attention to the housing issue, housing crisis. Some green initiatives would be nice in the next budget. I really think that like a number of years ago when there were incentives for solar panels and things like that, that was a great idea, and I'd like to see that type of initiative continued.
I mean, we're a country with a small population, aging population, and we're now pushing to get a lot of immigration in, which is good to help people come in, but we're not taking care of the people that are aging. It's just too much put on, just too many cuts for cost of living, and seniors can't afford it. It's just, I mean, I'm getting close to that age, and I'm concerned. I'm making sure I cover myself because I don't trust the government to have the money there for me now.
We have people on military pensions that can't afford a place to live, that are living on the streets. That's not all right. Yeah, I see it every day at work.
It is a really hard call between a lot more housing support and truly actually funding universal health care and covering things like pharmacy, vision care, and all the ways that Canadians are falling through the cracks with our healthcare system.
I'd like to see more money and more a variety of programs going towards housing in Canada. I think the federal government has really abandoned the responsibility over the last number of years, and I know they've introduced some new programs recently, but I think that they have a long way to go to make up the difference in the programs that have been canceled over the years. And I think housing is an issue all across Canada. It doesn't matter if you're living in a small community or a big community, it's an issue for people. And I'd just like to see the government get more involved, working in partnership with the provincial governments to improve affordability for housing in our communities.
I would like to see more money spent on healthcare so that the smaller communities can keep their smaller hospitals going and their ERs open.
I'd like to see more emphasis on our healthcare. It's more hospitals and like doctor clinics, stuff like that, yeah.
Mental health. I think mental health and literacy. I like to see people be able to read and make informed decisions, and I believe in mental health. I think that is too easy for us to assume that people want to be homeless or the drug addiction or alcohol addiction, whatever addictions that may be. People need help in these days, and I like to see that.
Well, as I am visually impaired, there's always more they can do for people with disabilities who work in the federal government and who are citizens of this country. because we're always having to self-advocate on a daily basis, whether it's on a bus or in our work environment. So I think they can always do more on that front.
I'd like to see the end of homelessness. I think that's the number one. Stats Canada saying it's up to 10%. A lot of it's hidden homelessness, but you know, we see the people on the streets we've never seen before. I think it's ridiculous in a country as rich as Canada.
I think our obligations on the international stage are being questioned. So certainly we have to put some more money into our national defenses, right, so that we can help abroad more readily. I think what we're seeing in Ukraine is symptomatic of potentially some of the bigger issues that could occur, and we need to be prepared.
I would like to see more funding for vulnerable people, such as people living with dementia, people living on disability, and people with mental health issues. I think that people who are not able to, who are vulnerable and not able to ask on their own, we need to support those populations.
An increase in pensions. Why? I'm a pensioner. Plus, I've been here 20 years, but I've worked ever since I've been here. And I don't get paid very much as a Canadian pension, and I think I should.
Less deficit. You know? Put your cards in order. Get your hand out of my pocket. I'm a happy guy.
I'd like to see more housing for the homeless, especially across Canada, because it seems to be a problem right now, right across Canada. I'm after traveling up through and seeing it for myself. I've seen it 20 years ago out in Alberta, and now we've seen it more here in Newfoundland than ever.
I'm a retired nurse, and I really believe that things have to change in healthcare. It's terrible what's happened. I'm old enough, I'm now almost 82. I've seen so many changes in healthcare, and what's happened is just terrible. I graduated in 1963, and I worked elsewhere in Ontario, besides several hospitals here, and I can't believe what's happened. I just can't believe what's happened to nursing. I would never enter nursing now, never as a career. It's just, and I loved what I did.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.